GCP. This is okay. GCP is actually one of the 40% of world's internet traffic is owned by Google actually. So that speaks about how large the network part of Google is. And these are the currently, this is a snapshot of maybe a few weeks back. So these are the locations where where they have the data centers, and the blue ones, the dark blue ones, and the ones with the white, these are upcoming. So this is the strategy of Google Cloud. So they're spreading their data centers across the world, and to give a better performance and to come out to the market. And so in comparison, so we have AWS, we have Google Cloud, and we have Microsoft Azure. So if we talk about SAP NetWeaver, the application installation, we have multiple VMs, as you see. So if you look at the largest ones, these are bare metals from this is from AWS, and Google Cloud also has some bare metals, but for NetWeaver we generally don't need that application. So these are the VMs that we have. So again, these two are a bigger they have a bigger population of VMs, but Google is again catching up. So these are the VMs, like, and they name it like M1 for M1, N1, N2, N. So we'll get into that. We'll quickly see. These are the VMs which are supported for HANA. For AWS and Google Cloud have similar kind of number of VMs, as Azure, as you see, has a large number of options there. But if you see the biggest VMs that we have, this is also a bare metal. This is also again a bare metal, and this is also, so 24 TB. These are all bare metal solutions. But if you go with the VMs, so this is the largest VM that AWS has, and I guess this is this is a little bit older. I think they have crossed 12 terabyte now. But if you see the Google Cloud, they have a 12 terabyte, and Azure as well. We have around 12 terabyte machine. This is the highest that the VMs, virtual machines, can get for now. So I mean, in comparison, all of these options are available, even though the volume of the VMs are lesser yet in Google Cloud, but they have a different kind of feature which says there is a custom compute. This is not present in this is actually not advisable for production workloads yet, but this will be getting certified soon from SAP. So they have a custom VM type, which means in AWS and Azure, we have to choose from the available VMs. But here, with respect to certain ratios, we can adjust and we can create a custom VM type, and which will be supported by SAP. So again, this is not yet supported by SAP, but so these are this might be upcoming. And we have different kinds of machine types like N1, N2, and N2D. So this differentiation is based on the ratio between the CPU and RAM. So if you see the ratios for N1, this is the for the vCPU of 2, the RAM should be 7.5. So in this ratio, anything in between we can choose. We would be able to choose, not right now, but maybe in coming days. So okay, so before we get into this live migration, so I thought that just speaking about them will make this session a little bit boring. So we'll go into the GCP cloud, and we will try to see why GCP is better than, at least from the network perspective, why it is better than the rest of the two. So first thing, we'll be building an environment. So quickly, I'll just build a storage. So this is a storage. We can create a storage account, and this is like the other storage accounts where we create a bucket, where we can upload our files. So this is a convenient way. If there is we have sufficient downtime, we can even migrate any system through this. We can upload the exports directly into a bucket and then download those exports as we will do with GSUtil. So quickly, let me create the bucket. This has to be unique name, so I hope this is okay. So if you see here, this is the location of the bucket where we can keep. There are currently 3 locations, so we'll choose the closest. So we are keeping this in our region, but if you see, it's multi-region, so it will be available through multiple regions. And we'll go with the standard. Okay, here if you see, there are different storage classes where these are this is similar to all the hyperscalers. Like standard will have the best, this is best for short-term storage. This is a nearline storage where we keep the backups. Even for HANA database backups, we can go for nearline storage or cold line or even archive, or we can put some scripts which will move the backups as per the schedule. So for now we'll go with standard. And access, let's keep it uniform for ease. So I'll create this bucket and I'll upload. Let me quickly come back to the presentation and jump to the last slide. So this is what we will be doing today. So we will be installing a web dispatcher and 2 Tomcat servers, and we will be balancing load, or let's say we will be creating, these are in 2 different regions. So and this will be a separate region. In case of any other hyperscalers like AWS or Azure, this VPC that you see would not scale regions. So there has to be one VPC here, one VPC here, another VPC here, and another VPC here, and we have to do network VPC peer connect. So, but in case of GCP, we don't need to do that. The VPC can span through the regions. So to build this, I'll just need the software for this. So I'm just copying it here, and we'll come back. I'll just upload it here, and we'll come back once it's done. So. Okay, so this is another interesting feature for another interesting feature for GCP is live migration. So this means if, let's say, this VM which is running on SAP, SAP is running on this VM, and this VM has a crash or there is an update needed, and which requires a downtime. In these cases, GCP has a feature called live migration, where it will move the underlying VM as well as the application, but the client connections will not be aware of that. So it will be a very short period of blackout, but after that it will again connect to this application. So this helps in regular maintenance activities, upgrades of OS, as well as the underlying hyperscaler, the network or Power BI data centers. Any questions? So if there is
the hostname IP address won't change, right? When we move this?
Nothing. The application will not be aware that anything has changed. We'll try to look into it a little bit, how it works. But what are the features that will help here is the regular maintenance and upgrades of the OS, the network failure, or any hardware failures like CPU or network card or anything, or disks, or any OS or BIOS upgrades, security related updates, or any system configuration changes which requires let's say the host size has to be changed. So in general, we had to stop the instance, change the host root partition, and then again start it. But here it can be done without even knowing that it is being done. So how that works is, let's consider this as a VM. This is a building, let's say office building, and we have not gone office very long. So I thought of adding this here. So what happens is, when, let's say at some point there's an alert, and at this point, the underlying TCP network gets an alert and it registers that this has a problem. So it starts the coordination phase. At this point, what happens is, the networking is still on in the source VM, the local SSD is being written, but parallelly it creates a blank house, let's say, and it moves the whatever is written in the local SSD, it moves to the local SSD of this VM. Till now, everything is running on the first VM. Now at this point, the memory of the source VM, it gets copied to the target, the one that is chosen. So at this point, whatever is happening in the memory, if you see, are getting copied to the other VM, and whatever is written to the persistent, so whatever is some data will be written to persistent disks. So those are still being written, but that persistent disks are, again, that is still written in the target side as well. So at this point, the burnout starts. So here this VM becomes static and the other VM takes up. So whatever is written to the written, it's getting written here only, not here. This is freeze now. And at this point, this persistent disks will be separate from the VMs. So this will point to this persistent disk. So this VM is now ready. Only thing remaining is this networking part. So at this point, during this time, there will be a very short networking lag, but then again, the network will be changed back to this network. So this will come to this network interface card. So all the network requests, so everything becomes same. So this VM and the earlier VM is deleted. So this thing, whatever is happening is agnostic to the client. Okay. So next we have one more feature.
Hey, I have one question. Like, the feature that you just told us, is it by default for any VM, or it needs to be activated for any kind of VMs?
By default, it is enabled, but it can be disabled as well. So there are certain parameters, like so if you see, there are certain parameters on host maintenance. This is one parameter where whenever a maintenance event occurs, this default is migrate. So it will live migrate to another instance by default. And if you change this to terminate, then it will behave like normal maintenance activities. And also there is one more thing called auto restart, which by default is true, which means if there is a instance crash, so it will auto restart. It will try to restart on the same infrastructure, but if it doesn't, then it will move on to maybe another rack and start up there. So these two features are very useful, so that automatically we can recover once a VM fails.
So Pinaki, Sarvjit here.
Yeah.
So this live migration feature, is it only applicable for application VM, or is it this is applicable for the DB database VM as well?
So the database workloads are actually a little bit because they need to be consistent. So till now they do not have such database live migration. I'm not aware of that, but this, whatever I'm talking about right now, this is in general about the application servers. For database, this is mainly for the RPO RTO needs. So for database, they generally suggest to go with some database replication technology for the RPO RTO, because even if we can copy the whole memory and everything, there is a short lag, and maybe there might be some inconsistencies in the database. So applications can handle that. Databases right now are it's not able to, but I'm sure maybe in future they will also include the.
So like if I have to further extend this question, How does this different from our high availability? Like we talk about the application HA when we configure the application HA. How
Yes.
different is this feature from our the classical HA which we used to configure in normal setup in any other cloud or on-premise data center?
Yes, so let's say for application level, we have ACS and ERS. So we do a HA with ACS ERS. So that is still there. That is that we have to configure. But this feature is by default. So this will be in one region. So another thing is, so if this VM will be close by in the same data center. Not, it will not move to a separate data center. So that's one reason. For HA, we consider that the data center has failed and we move on to a different data center. But in this case, this will remain in the same data center. This is kind of a high availability for the VM level failure. So it's an additional you can say additional measure to lower the RTOs. Yeah.
So this live migration is not a replacement of our HA feature.
Not a replacement, no. This is a separate additional feature which GCP has on all its VMs, not only SAP, it has all its VMs. So additionally, we generally do ACS and ERS cluster, which I'll come to in a moment. I think that I can go to that. So this is the HA architecture that we generally have from SAP side. We build this and Pacemaker is again supported with on GCP, and it's the same architecture which is everywhere on RHEL or let's say SUSE, because the VMs are same. So this architecture remains the same. So there are different these resources are created like ACS resource and the ERS running here. And then once if a failure happens, then if this goes down, then the virtual IP will move to where the ACS instance will be. So since this ACS follow ERS rule, so this ACS will come here, and then the reverse will happen. So this part is still there. We have to configure all of these just to make sure from SAP level we are sure that ACS and ERS are highly available. But apart from this, for let's say PaaS, for PaaS we do not have such mechanism of adding a pacemaker. So for PaaS we have a different another additional application server as HA or the high availability solution. But we can use this feature. So maybe we'll not, for at least for the high availability purpose, we will not need the additional application server. If I'm able to answer you.
Yeah. Thanks, Pinaki.
Pinaki, just one question. Hari here. So how does the IP address get managed in this live migration?
So yeah, that's GCP's own backbone management. So what happens is they switch the network that you see here on this VM, this will get switched off at that point only. If you see, networking is the only thing that's not in parallel here. The rest of the things are all parallel, but only when the networking stops, the VM is burnt out. So if you see here at this point, we don't have any connections here. So this IP will move here.
Okay, it's the same IP then.
Yeah,
okay.
It will come here and through this NIC will get the same IP.
Got it. Thank you, Pinaki.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
physical
does
IP,
it?
not the virtual IP. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. Does it revert to the original VM once it is back?
No, no. They just discard that, and maybe that's used for a different application later on. But no, it will not. It will not keep track of which VM goes down. So it will just scrap the old VM, and it will claim the resources.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So yeah, we went through these two features. Now for storage. So as we already, okay, so for storage, GCP provides different kinds of storage like persistent disk storages, local SSDs, which is non-persistent actually. So we should not use this for SAP workloads. Cloud storage, where we can keep the backups, where we just uploaded the files. Yeah, files are here. So if we can go inside. So these are the files. We'll use them in a moment. Okay. So in the file store, we have NFS Share, and we also have NetApp Cloud Volume Service. This is just the same kind of service as ANF or Azure NetApp or AWS NetApp has. So they have a specific they manage the HANA data, HANA log, and even the shared can be used on them. Other than that, generally, most of the SAP workloads, including HANA, will be deployed with persistent disk storage. And so we have different kinds of persistent disk storage, but generally the balanced one is most appropriate. And there are some which are extreme persistent disks, which are for SAP HANA and the other in-memory databases. So generally we use persistent disks. So for NetWeaver, so this is GCP's guidelines that persistent disk we should use. And in general, like let's say we use and the throughputs and the IOPS will depend on the size of the persistent disk or that we choose. So let's say a NetWeaver system where we have selected N2 standard 8 means 8 vCPUs, and it will have 32 GB RAM. So in this case, so we can use two balanced disks. So if we use the boot disk of 30 GB, so the IOPS as you see here is 180 IOPS only, and the read write is 8.4 megabytes per second. So this compared to this 250 GBs, we have 1.5 IOPS, and read write is also I think this is a little bit less. Yeah, this is 70 MB. So it's much higher than this. So depending on the size of the persistent disks, the VM performance will vary. So that's generally almost similar to any hyperscalers again. So this so for NetWeaver, so GCP suggests to go with persistent disks, and for HANA we can again use persistent disks or balanced persistent disks. There is one more thing called SSD persistent disks. We can use both of these, or we can go for the NetApp volumes that's a service. So in these cases, let's say for HANA, for 80 vCPU. So this is generally the standard given by GCP, that we can keep HANA data, HANA log in 3000 GB. So this is the minimum actually. We'll have to at least keep this, and HANA shared in a balanced. So this is a SSD persistent disk. This is a balanced persistent disk. And again, boot disk should be balanced, and backups can be anything like standard, or it can be moved to cloud storage as well. And for let's say if we have the same machine, I think yeah, this can also be another architecture. So these are some architectures which are already, these are certified by SAP and also GCP. So if we want to keep everything in SSD, that's also possible. So if this in this architecture, what happens is overall the IOPS, as you see here, increases. So it's 100. If you add these two, 96. But if we keep everything in the same persistent disk, then the IOPS increases. So this is one of the reasons it depends on case-to-case basis, but tuning this will be important for the performance of the VM. So this is for storage for HANA, and we have this NetApp storage, which is a service which is fully managed, and we have this has a high performance and also high availability, and we can use HANA data and HANA logs in this NetApp shared storages, and also we can place HANA shared as well, but that's not required. So the protocols that it supports: NFS v3, NFS 1 protocols, not I mean for NFS 4.1 there is it's not yet supported with multiple TCP connections. So any of these, and the volume requirements are NetApp cloud volumes must be in the same region as the host of the VM instances. So the volumes has to be in the same region, and there is extreme service level from NetApp service, which for the data and log volumes, this service has to be taken. And there is one more for premium service tier, and this is for HANA shared directory if it's separate. But these are all from NetApp, the services that they provide. So for best performances, SAP HANA systems that are larger than 1 TB, they are asking us to create separate volumes for these. But if it is less than 1 TB, it's better to club it together so that we get a higher IOPS. Okay, and okay, so this is the minimum size that NetApp recommends. So HANA shared a minimum size of 2 TB and HANA data minimum size of 4 TB, even if you're, because this is for optimum performance. So even if the database size is less, but the data volumes 4 TB is the minimum size that is recommended. But again, this is only a recommendation. Backups, we can directly, there's a API actually for backups where we have a backend agent. This agent, we will just install this agent on any HANA VMs, and once this is installed, we have a parameter file where we edit some parameters and we add in HANA, we had these parameters. So with the catalog backups, so with these parameters, the backend will be configured. It's fairly easy, and we can take a backup directly to the storage bucket, a storage bucket which we just created, similar kind of a storage bucket. Now, the virtual network. So the way to get into a virtual network is through a Bastion host. In general, that's the architecture that we have. We log into a Windows jump box and then we go inside, and it's the same in GCP as well. Also, GCP has for outward traffic from the VMs to outside, there are two ways. One is a NAT proxy, one is CloudNAT. So CloudNAT uses the IP addresses, the ports as a mapping between each source and destination, and NAT proxy is just proxies as this will be acting as a proxy for these VMs. We'll just create a, okay, now we'll come back to this. Let's quickly, so what is the time? Okay. Yeah, so let's create a virtual network. So by default, there is one virtual network, that is the default virtual network, that by default it's always created when any account is created. But let's delete this virtual network. Okay. So while that's deleting, we'll create a virtual network, and now here we can see, let's say this is so we create a subnet. Now, if you see here, we can choose the region. That means let's say this is the DMZ, and let's choose a region Northeast 3 so that we can track, and IP address, say, and done. So this is one. So this is the first. So let me go back to the picture once. So this is the subnet that we are creating. The subnet, the dot line that you see here, this is the first one, DMZ subnet. Now we'll create the subnet 1. So let's put this in 1 and give them the range of, say, 1. Done.
Sorry, one question, like
Yes.
what is the parameter to see like it is in DMZ zone or it's not in DMZ zone?
Yeah, right now we are not. We're just creating the networks. It's not yet in DMZ. We'll come to the part where we'll make this as a DMZ.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll get to how we do that. So yeah, quickly I'll do the subnet 2 and this. Okay, let me create this. Sorry, what is this? Underscore will not. This is not yet deleted or what? It is deleted, it's still showing here. Anyways, we are concerned about this VPC. So once this, yeah, this will take a little bit of time, so I'll come back. Okay. Okay. So,
just a quick query, Pinaki. You have created 3 subnets in single VPC, and these subnets are in 3 different regions, right?
yes, that's what. Yes,
and this is, you said earlier that it's not possible in other 2, like in Azure or AWS. You cannot create one VPC and then it spans multiple regions. It cannot be done.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So as you see here, this VPC spans all these regions, but in case of Azure, you would have to create separate virtual networks.
VPCs. Yes, VNets.
Nets, they say. Yes. So separate, and then you had to, if you had to talk to the VM, talk to different VMs within this subnets, there would have to be either a interconnect or VPN connect or some proxy or some complications. So that's what this is simpler. So you have only one network and you have different subnets, and again this subnet cannot span one data center actually. So this is actually in one data center. So that we will see. So okay. So now what here we are? Yeah, this is okay. Monitoring will come. Yeah, we'll come to that. Okay. So now we'll quickly create some VMs. Okay, first, so we are creating the first VM now. So which is the SAP Web Dispatcher VM. So let's say this is SAP. And we put it here in the, see this one I chose. This is the region for. This is the 3. 3 is the region for the SAP Web Dispatcher, and I can put actually it can include any of the zones as well. So inside this region, I'm putting it in, say let's say any region, and yeah. So now this N2 and N2 standard 2, let's say, and this. Here, if you see, there are public images which SAP GCP provides, where there are 2 specifically for SAP. So we can directly get this from SAP. I'll take Red Hat and the latest one, and we'll say this is a balanced persistent disk, and let's say 200. Okay, and for now, we will have to create some tags, and okay, so the thing is, now we have to go back. Let me come. So each virtual network VPC in GCP comes with a firewall of its own. So similar to network security groups, kind of similar, but it includes actually network security group and access control list. So like if we go back to the VPC, here we have a firewall. So We'll create a firewall rule. Let's say this is the DMZ rule. Now what we will do is, from this network VPC incoming, any incoming requests will be able to reach with this target tag. Now if I put DMZ here, this is a target tag that I'm putting here, so that any VM which has this tag will be accessible from outside. From the source would be 0.0.0.0/0. This is internet. So from internet, any of the VMs which I tag with DMZ will be available, and we'll allow all for now, and then create this rule. And now we'll have to tag this VM, whatever we are creating, this VM to this rule, so that it becomes available from outside. So coming back to the VM, here we have selected the OS, and we are not allowing this now because we have already allowed everything with that rule. And let's see if that works. And going to network, we'll put a network tag DMZ here. So this makes this VM this will apply the firewall rule DMZ rule to this VM. And as you see, this VPC was created in this region, so this is already picked up. Now we'll just go ahead and create this. Okay, so while this is getting created, I think the other two VMs also we can create quickly. Those will be very simple, normal. So these two VMs, one web server, two web servers, one in subnet 1, one in subnet 2. So we'll create, let's say this is web server 1, and we keep it in the first subnet. Anywhere is okay, and this should be fine. Debian is also fine. Yeah, here we'll again, for now, okay, so for now, since we have to access this from outside and we need to test so that it's working or not, so I'm putting this VM as well, these two as well in the DMZ. But later on, what we will do is we will point everything, we will make the external IP address we will disable in these two, and we will only forward request internally through the internal IP address. So for now, I'm again putting it in the DMZ, and this is subnet 1, as you see, and we'll create this, and one more in subnet 2, and we will be done. In subnet 2, so this will be and this will be in the second region. So this should pick up the subnet 2 we have, and I'll give network tag DMZ again. Okay, create. Okay, so our VM SAP Web Dispatcher is now created, and I will just quickly. Okay, so as you see here, this is the internal IP. This is the internal IP, and we have external IPs because we had added them in external IP. Now later on we'll remove these two. For web servers we'll remove these two, but we'll continue to have this. So for now, let me connect to this machine. So from GCP, it's very easy to connect to the machine directly. If you do SSH, it will copy the keys, whatever key we have. The user that I've logged in with, cloud_user_p. It's a Linux Academy Labs account that I think all of you have. I'm just using the ACGA Cloud Guru sandbox. So here, a couple of things. We have to install SAP Web Dispatcher here. So for that, we'll first have to get the software. So we already uploaded the software here. Let me quickly go back and get the storage name. So this is my storage name, and inside this I think I have Web Dispatcher. So yeah, whatever I have, I'll copy everything. So this command is a cloud suite command, gcloud suite SDK command. So by default, all the VMs which are created has this installed gsutil, but we can also install it. If you see, I have this Google Cloud SDK installed. So through this, we can directly install in our machine, and we can log into here. We have to do gcloud init, and it will ask for my username, password, and everything. It will connect to that account. But for now, I'm not doing here. I'm using the one that we have here. Inside that gcloud suite, you have this command gsutil to copy files from the storage buckets or to the storage buckets. So here the command is simple, gsutil, and then your normal copy command cp-r, and you copy from the Google storage bucket, which I have copied, I guess, yes, ECP training, and I'll copy everything here to the home directory of this user.
What we are trying to install in this VM?
So we are trying to install SAP Web Dispatcher, just a small, because it takes little time, and other NetWeaver we don't have time to install. So we are trying to achieve this architecture where we will have a load balancing between these two web servers, between two subnets which are spanned in different regions, and we will direct traffic from a separate region to both these regions. And the purpose.
So this one, the load balancer, the first one.
This is not a conventional load balancer. This is SAP Web Dispatcher. So we are trying to do whatever load balancer does through a web dispatcher. And why we are doing this? Because a load balancer will have to create in one region. So for 3 regions, we'll have to have 3 separate. So load balancers will not be able to balance between regions. So, but through SAP
I believe like load balancer is also not regional specific in Google Cloud.
Yeah, good question. We'll quickly check that. So let's say we consider HTTPS. So yes, see, we have to choose a region here. So that means we cannot balance a load between 2 regions. The backend configuration, we have to select a region and VPC network. So not the network, just the network, but the region as well. So
can you go on the first page where you select this HTTPS one?
Yep.
One more, can you go back?
It says singular multi-region as well, actually. One more, go back.
Yeah. Okay. Create load balancer.
Yeah, it is as it is a multi-region resource actually. So we can do it multi-region. But you see, UDP is single region and TCP is these two are these are used generally. So we can do this with load balancing as well. But since this is SAP on GCP, so we thought of having a SAP component on GCP deployed.
Okay. And how useful is that, like, to using Web Dispatcher as a load balancer in place of a actual load balancer?
This is useful in the sense that this is free, and you can just have a VM and just balance. Like if we can put both of these in the target as a target. And if one goes down, it will direct. In general, it goes load balancing through round robin. But if one goes down, it will redirect to one server. It's a very simple. It's not. Yeah.
So so it's a Web Dispatcher is free. That's why we are using Web Dispatcher instead of having a load balancer.
No, this is just for creating a architecture in GCP. So this was, I think, apt because only SAP Web, only component that we can install would in this time will be SAP Web Dispatcher.
Okay, okay. So for this practice purpose only.
Yeah, this is just for practice. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, you guys can please help me or tell me if I'm doing anything wrong if you want to do this, or we can go back to the slides again. Okay, but yeah. So this is copied. Now I have to change the permission. And I'll have to, by default, the root user is not enabled, so we'll have to change that. This is Red Hat only. So. And we'll enable the password login. Okay, now we'll change the password of root. And one more thing, I think we have to install shell as well. Okay, that will take time. I'll change the password. Okay, password is changed. Okay, so now I think if Devraj is there, I think we can take a maybe 5 minutes break while this will get installed. So, can we take a 5 minutes break while this is installed?
Yeah, I think we can install it parallelly on all the 3 VMs.
No, we don't need to install. The other 2 VMs will only install Tomcat, so that will be pretty easy, pretty straight. Okay, we can do that right now. We can connect that. Let's say I'm connecting to web server 1 and web server 2 as well. So this is, I think I have the commands. This is web server 1.
So we are installing Tomcat servers in region 2 and region 3.
Server, yes. It's 2 we are installing.
And then it will load balance that URL from the first one, from the web dispatcher.
Yes. Okay. So I'm installing this here and installing the other one as well. So this is still going on, and this server is installed. So we'll put one marker inside. So just to make sure one is one server, another is one another. So we'll quickly put, this is web server 1. So here we will edit the var www HTML index file, and we'll just put J2CTM. This is Apache server 1, and same thing we'll do in the other VM. Just put that J2C server 2. So this is server 2 and region 2. Okay, so this is done, and this will take a little bit time. Okay, I'll come back at 7. That's okay.
Yeah, I think 7.5 is okay. 10 minutes break.
7.5. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. Shall we proceed? Okay, let's quickly see if our web server is running. So this is server 1, region 1. This is server 2. Okay, now we'll have to install the web dispatcher. So for that, we connect. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think if everyone is not there, let's wait till 7:05 then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, this little time, so let me start. I'll just quickly connect. So is WPM. And running SAP INST. Copy this. Okay. This again is a smaller VM type, so it will take a little time. Okay, let me put it in background because it might break. So we are going to install Web Dispatcher. I think everyone is quite familiar. Share with the audience. We install Web Dispatcher with SWPM. This is a SAP tool which balances between web requests based on the port as well as based on application URLs. That's just a background. If anybody is not familiar, we'll go with the typical because there's nothing special we want to do here. Just install it and change the profiles. So let's say WP is my service ID. I think one thing I think I should have done, but I should change the permissions. So okay, good. Password. Okay, the package path, I have uploaded the download folder in USR and USR Web Dispatcher and downloads. Okay. Next. So just picked it up. Okay, swap. For now, let's skip swap because it will take a reboot of the VM if we need to add it. So it should be fine because this is just a web dispatcher. But in normal cases, we should always have these checks. So like the CSH shell should be available. If not, we need to install that. That's what we did here. Not here. So we installed the TCSH, which is again the alias of CSH. We'll not connect to message server here now. We'll modify the parameters. I need to clear it. Okay. So the instance has started. We can. It's not yet started. So it's finished. So I'll close this. Now let's go to the. Let's close this as well. Okay. So this is. Now we can change to WDP ADM. Go to CD Pro. Modify the profile a little bit. Right now there is no backend, so we'll put a backend here. Backend will be two of our two systems, so we'll balance with the. So I have it here. So this is the these two servers 10.0.1.2 and 10.0.2.2. So these two are the internal IP addresses of these two web dispatchers. So we will balance through the internal, and also this parameter here, this actually pings this URLs. This is the health check in the common sense. So this will ping this server at /URL, and if there is no response, it will remove that server from the list. And also we'll open a port. So we'll this port through this port we'll be accessing. So let's put the backends, and we'll open a port here. (8080). Okay, save it. And we'll restart. It's running. So let's try to open this URL with 8080 and see. So this URL. This is redirecting to 1. Now the second. 1, 2. So this is load balancing between these two servers. Now, if these two are still accessible from outside. So if you see here, this IP address is still, this is still available, this is still available. We want to remove those, and we do not want these web servers to be external facing. So we'll quickly go inside, edit, and remove the tag. Remove the DMC tag here. So this will, as a result, what will happen is this will not work, the external access. Or another thing we'll do is we'll remove the external IP. So remove the external IP as well as, because we don't need external IP anymore, and we have removed the network tags. So now I'm going to save this VM, this is web server 1. So this is web server, this is Apache 1. So we'll save this. And as you can see, the system was running. I changed the network, so it should automatically take effect. Still saving. So this is gone. This is still there, 2, but in our web dispatcher if you see, one is gone. So we are not able to access the first server through web dispatcher as well. And why is that? Can anybody tell me?
Remove the tag. Don't remove the tag.
Yes, remove the tag, correct. So I remove the tag, that means any communication is not happening on this VM now. So for this to do an internal, we'll have to make this server. So these servers talk to each other, but not outside. So for this, we can create an internal rule where let's quickly go to the VPC now. I will go from here. VPC, and we'll create a firewall rule, and we'll call it internal rule. And here, let's say from this VPC, we can specify another target tag. So let's specify this as the internal, or let's say this is private, and sources. So what am I doing here? So wait a minute. So the source will be our first subnet, which is 10.0.0.0/24. From here, everything is allowed. So we'll allow all. So this becomes private, and this is internal rule. So now we go back. We'll go to this web server. I'll edit here again, and I'll put a network tag. Save it. So this is still not accessible. Okay, now from here, if you see, 1 is again accessible, 2 is still accessible because it's in DMZ. So, but we'll remove it from DMZ right now, just for the completion. Remove this private. So it's still actually open because we've allowed everything from web dispatcher to these VMs. So anybody can log into the web dispatcher and get into these VMs, but we are not making this secure. We're just trying to use an SAP feature as a load balancer on GCP. And the only specific thing here is it spans multiple regions. So this is tied. Okay, I think one more thing, I should remove I did not remove the external IP. I'll remove that. That doesn't matter though, but what is that? External one. And this is on private. Should work. Yeah. So we've established this architecture where it is now load balancing, but you're unable to reach it directly or through any external IP address. So these are removed. So if you see, this now only has an internal IP address, these two. This will go away in a little bit. But essentially that was what our exercise today was. Now let us go back to the slides. So for SAP, GCP has provided specific API again for monitoring. We have a Stackdriver agent. Stackdriver is GCP's main monitoring tool. It's a suite kind of thing, so it has different agents. So we can install the Stackdriver agent, and that will interact with the host agent, which is installed in any SAP system. So and through the host agent, it will get some information in addition to these. What we can see, if you see, if I go here into I think let's say here. So this monitoring is already available, the CPU as well as memory. If you can see, it's this sorry, I'm sorry. So CPU, network, these are already available, but for the memory utilization or disk space utilization, we need this monitoring agent. So we can directly install it from here. It will directly install this monitoring agent, and let's see. Sorry. So yeah, we can install it for RHEL. So this is actually the command which is adding. So this is adding the repository and installing this Stackdriver agent, as you see here. So this agent will be able to communicate with the SAP host agent and give us some more information for HANA system as well as NetWeaver systems. So I'll install it and we'll come back here. So if you see here, monitoring SAP Solution Manager, we are all aware of. So that's already there. And apart from that, we can have this Stackdriver agent installed on these are the, let's say, for HANA systems as well as for the SAP systems. So for SAP systems, we install the Stackdriver and it can talk to the host agent and all the applications. And also for HANA, we can install this and we can get some data like some applications or HANA database specific data which is not available without querying into the database. So so how do we install that for HANA? This for 1.0. This is the program, the API which we need to install. We'll call this API and then just install it. So for 1.0 sudo curl, this will install, and 2.0 we have to go to this location, download that, and then we can install it, or we can curl to this and then install it. For configuring, we have the GCM. We edit the GCM. There is a file created in etc default, and from 2.0 it's a YAML file. So here we can define custom queries, and some basic operations are like you can start and stop the GCM service and check the status, and also the logs through journals.etl. So and where do you view? You view in cloud monitoring. So in our last migration POC, we created a monitoring dashboard, which as you see here, not much because the system was not being used. But if you see here, it could show the column store tables, the memory used for column store table, system code size, row store, statement execution memory, as well as some more. So it's capable of getting HANA database level memory usage for its different stacks. So this is monitoring for HANA, and so as we do a comparison between AWS, Azure, and GCP. So as you see here, most of the things are common, but for virtual networks, this is global. Both of these are regional, and also if you see the network, if you see these are the network access control list for the network, subnet, and security groups for the VMs. Similar in Azure, but in this case, what we have is we have a simple firewall which comes with every VPC, and we can just use tags to include systems. We can also use there are different options. There are different options here. We can use target tags as well as we can use all instances in the network or any specified service account. If we're calling it through some specified service account, it will be accessible. So these are the rules that can be applied, and through this the networking becomes really easy. Rest of the things are similar in all, like they have VPC endpoints, service endpoints, and private Google access, and also the VNet network peering. So GCP has dedicated interconnect, similar to Azure's on-premise connection, which is I forgot the name. What's the Azure connection name? I forgot that. Anyways, so typically in Azure we have. So can anyone remind me of this? What is this? What was the name for Azure?
For what service means?
For dedicated connection between Azure and on-premise.
Express route.
Sorry, I forgot that. It's written here. Okay, so yeah, so they have cloud interconnect. It's a similar kind of service, but they generally GCP has around 16 Gbps links. So for dedicated, as for express route, we have 10 Gbps, I guess, now generally. Okay, so again, a comparison. As for in Azure, we have this kind of architecture in general. There's a VNet here, and there's a VNet here, and we have replication going on for this is a primary secondary architecture where we have HANA system replication going on and VM snapshots for applications and Azure site recovery for the higher level components and as well as the application levels. And this is for NFS, the VM snapshots. And we have to have a VNet peering in this case. Similar in case of AWS. We have two VPCs, as you see. We have to do an interconnect, but for GCP, what we do is create a project, create a VPC, select a region, just select the region, and we create a subnet in that region, and we create the HANA system, and then the backups can be stored in cloud storage. Then we install ACS, we install PaaS, and the connection comes through a DMZ subnet, which is again tagged as DMZ. It can be in the same region or can be in a different region. We have a Batchen host there, and we are working from home now. So we'll connect through a IAP tunnel. So there's a tunnel that can be created, which through this gcloud suite, where we run one command in the gcloud console, and which will create a tunnel from our machine, from my VM to this Batchen host in this subnet. So we can directly SSH there then. So not SSH, RDP into this VM. So generally this is a Windows VM. So once we get into here, then we can connect to the application. And for high availability, we create a separate subnet in a different zone in that region, and we put ERS and we make a pacemaker cluster, and then we create a load balancer on top, and then we provide the backend configurations to make the HA complete for application level. Then if we need a HANA database application, we create the HANA system, we create the pacemaker cluster for HANA system, and then we have the load balancer for HANA for the database, and then we enable the HSR, synchronous replication between different zones. And we can have additional application servers if we want in this region, and it will be connected to the load balancer. Now, from on-premise or from the on-premise network of the data center, what we can do is we can connect through a VPN gateway. We'll have the VPN gateway connecting, and from the VPN gateway, the request will be routed to the load balancers. So this is possible, but if we had to create a DR, as in earlier cases, AWS and Azure, again, we had to create a separate VNet and separate everything. The cloud foundation again in a separate the VNet had to be created in a separate region. But in case of GCP, this is very easy. We'll just extend the VNet. It's automatically extended. We'll select another region. We'll install we'll create a subnet. Then we'll copy the backups to cloud storage. We'll create the HANA system, and we'll create the replication asynchronous across the regions. And we also can have these systems applications as on demand. We can take a copy. We can keep the application file system level replication. We can do a storage application here for the DR, and we can connect from the virtual VPN gateway to this. So this is generally the architecture that we have for SAP systems on GCP. And strategies for migration, actually there are different kind of, I mean, SAP GCP differentiates this kind of like move, migrate, transform, and re-implement. So move is a lift and shift, so nothing is changing, just the application is we're just replicating everything. For migrate, something is changing, at least OS and DB is changing, or both is changing. Transform is which means OSDB is changed, as well as there's some other efforts, which means, let's say a file-based database system is going to in-memory database. So there are some, like in HANA, in case of HANA, we have some corrections that needs to be done. And another is re-implement, where we implement a fresh system and maybe copy the configurations or any data if required. So these are the strategies which GCP has defined, but from our side, SAP, we have generally SWPM exports, or first is the database backup if it's possible, backup restore if it's the same database, and Indian is same. If there's difference in Indian, or if any changes in operating system level or database level, we have to do SWPM export import, or we can use, if it's going to HANA, we can use DMO. System move and move the systems. So it's pretty similar to all the environments, nothing special in GCP, but these are the differentiations of GCP. So this, as we discussed, live migration is one, post auto restart is one. These two generally differentiates with other cloud vendors. Security is actually same for all. So, but it says that Google publicizes that it's leading in security. So, yeah, this is from their site. Actually, this slide we got with when we were dealing with SAP, dealing with Google during our earlier project. And there is one more thing which for HANA system, there is one more on-tap memory fast restart which is coming up, but it's not yet released and not yet certified on GCP. So, but it's still coming up, where we can restart HANA in minutes, maybe big HANA systems. So the technology there is actually creating a temporary file system, and it's like similar kind of like a swap. So you keep the memory onto the file system, and then while you restart, you populate it as a memory. So, but that's still not yet released, but it will be in future. And so these are the differentiation factors. So yeah, you can deploy a HANA cluster with HSR and Pacemaker in less than 30 minutes. This is their deployment. They have a deployment Cloud Suite development deployment manager, resource manager. So we can use that directly. We have it in their marketplace. So if we go here, if we go to marketplace, and if I type in HANA, so as you see, these are pre-built images where you can just directly run this, and also these are just VMs, but you can also have deployments where this is a deployment where SAP is with HA and upgrade services. So we'll have this is a virtual machine, but they have deployments as well. I'm not actually here since this is a demo server. I do not have access to all those deployments, but it's there. So if you can follow their documentations, if you follow the documentation as well, it's very easy to create a HANA cluster on Pacemaker. So how do we create that? So this we already have seen. So for application, we create resources in PCS for RHEL or CRM for SUSE. So we create different resources. One virtual IP resource. This is the SAP ACS resource, health check resource, Tonith resource. So these resources are running for here. If you see, this is ERS resource, and this Pacemaker is configured so that with the resource stickiness, which means this ACS resource will stay on here. These numbers are actually just parameters which to tune so that how much it will stick. So these are guidelines from SUSE as well as RHEL as well as SAP, tried and tested. These parameters what you see here was used to create the HA on GCP for SAP system that we migrated. So we saw this again. So this is similar for all the applications. If the primary goes down, the virtual IP will move to the other side, and there's a load balancer obviously on top. This is just a depiction. This is not like a ball or something. So this is just moving to the other side. At this point, we have this server coming up, and so the other virtual IP will move to the other side, and then based on the co-location, the NQ application. At this moment, everything is running here. So at this point, the NQ application server will move because of the co-location minus parameter, and then again the reverse ASCS follow ERS rule is applied, and again you see it's just the opposite. It's running here. So similarly, it will go on the other side. For HANA VMs, these are mainly a few parameters. There are others as well, but prefer site takeover true, automated register true, and duplicate primary timeout 7200. This is a standard parameter. This is generally by default is the same, similar to the application. But here we do is we create a resource called HANA promoted, and here it's demoted. So what this resource does is this resource comes from another API which is developed by SUSE. It's not actually by SUSE, I'm not sure by whom, but it has been developed. I think SUSE. It has been developed for the SUSE systems. It has been developed to interact with the HANA system and get the status of the system. So if this system is primary, this resource will be promoted, and if this system is secondary, this resource will be demoted. So similar kind. If it's Oracle, this feature we do not have in Oracle, in Pacemaker as well as Oracle Linux. So in case of Oracle, we generally have to do this on Oracle Linux, and Oracle Linux will not support Pacemaker. And in that case, it can support Pacemaker, but it will not support these resources which we are talking about here, the backend APIs. So in that case, we have to create a custom program which will call this site, and it will keep on running on background and checking this the health of the state. And if it's primary, it will start a port, a custom port, and if it's not, it will not start. So similarly here, it will not start that port. So what happens is during the failure, if the preferred site takeover is true, this VIP will immediately move here. So it's in a matter of seconds, it will move. It will not wait. If it's false, then it will wait some time, for at least some period of time. But if it's true, it will move immediately. And if the automated register is true, then what will happen is once this VM comes up, this status becomes demoted and this becomes promoted, and this replication will start automatically if this is true. And there is a duplicate primary timeout. So if there are two primaries at some point, there is a timeout value after which one of the nodes will be shot in the head. So that is what the shoot Stony device does. So it just kills one of the primary. So during that time, this parameter actually makes the system a little bit hanged. But again, we have to tune it according to each of the VM types and situations. Okay, so this we already created. I think I'm done with my slides now. So any additional questions that we can discuss now? I have just started working on GCP, by the way, so I'm not an expert here, but we can discuss anything we want.
Pinaki, I have a question.
Yes.
So in monitoring, I'm just wondering how it will work if we have multiple applications installed on the same VM. I mean, for example, if it's a performance optimized setup wherein we have multiple SAP systems or databases installed on the same VM, will it exactly give us the same data that it was showing up for a single instance?
So it depends on the host agent. So if you have only one host agent, it will communicate with host agents and it will get the instances. So here, I'm not sure if this is working here yet. Okay, let me go back to the slide because here we don't have that any. So here, if you see, agent installation is pending here still again. What is this? Okay, So if I go back to the slide. So this here. So for HANA systems, generally we have only one. If we have two HANA systems, we'll have to add the instances here. So configuration here in 1.0 for or if in 2.0 there is a configuration YAML file where we can add the instances like the SIDs of each system, and we'll get different values, or we can even actually, there are some queries we can create. So if I can directly see that. So if you see here, they have given some yes. So there are some default queries which they have. Apart from this, we can add other queries to check, and also this in this configuration YAML file we will put the instance name and details.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think I got it. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions we can discuss, or something you want to share?
So Pinaki, are you going to share these slides?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I mean, I think LKM team will share this.
Okay. So Pinaki, who are the SAP customers we have in GCP?
So yeah, there are few. I think David will maybe tomorrow's sessions. David will be able to tell you all the overall Accenture clients that have used. But I have worked in Shempra, and that's energy company. So they have not yet moved to GCP, but they are just trying to do some POCs and see in all clouds and see which one better suits them. From a budget perspective as well as their security constraints. So one of those POCs we have done, and apart from that there are others, but I am not fully aware of them. So maybe David can help with that. Maybe in tomorrow's sessions David will clarify that.
Yeah, and if I have to ask you on the commercial point of view between GCP, Azure and AWS, which one is cheaper? I would say, because most of the services on the service side, I think all are meeting the customer requirement. All the clouds are meeting the customer requirement. So in the commercial point of view, which one is best suitable for the customer? Which cloud?
I think commercial, it actually depends. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that Azure is ahead in that front because they're actually commercially more viable. We can just compare, I guess. So let's say for this VM, I think there's some cost associated somewhere.
Just to add, Pinaki, this is Amit. So I think from a VM perspective, if we only consider about compute optimized VM and GCP, it will be much more cheaper compared to AWS and Azure. The only reason because is that GCP offers a kind of a 1-year commitment to the memory optimized instances, and the charges are like vCPUs per hour and GBs per hour. So that makes the Google Cloud slightly cheaper compared to AWS and Azure for compute optimized devices.
Okay.
VMs instances.
So yeah, so maybe GCP is cheaper than GCP VMs, but again there are different subsidies that are given to clients. Like GCP for Shempra, they actually they gave the funding for the POC for because they wanted the client to move to GCP. So like that, they're giving some prices, some customized prices as well. So I'm not sure about the financials actually. So.
See, Pinaki, I work on all these three platforms.
Yes, sir.
But